Coming up on The Reveal. It's a story that seems too unbelievable to be true.
I could only describe as something I've seen in a horror movie.
How a Georgia woman says she found video of her own sexual assault, and why investigators have yet to question the man caught on camera. Then a mother's agonizing choice.
Everything I do, I think about Bradley.
The Reveal investigates a snag leaving thousands of children stuck in the system without care. Plus the unavoidable impact.
You were drowned in the tragedy 24/7 on social media, on TV, because you couldn't even go outside.
A closer look at the push for social justice through the eyes of a man on the front lines of the fight for civil rights.
From our Midtown studios in Atlanta, The Reveal begins now with our multi-Emmy and National Mural Award-winning team of investigators.
Welcome to The Reveal. I'm Kristen Crowley. 6 years. That's how long a Georgia woman says she has waited for justice in her rape case. A case that is still unsolved today, despite video evidence. So we found out why the Cherokee Sheriff's Office hasn't even questioned the man she's accused.
There are no words to explain it, but just horror.
This story isn't easy to hear, and it certainly isn't easy to tell. But it's a story this woman is brave enough to share. We're hiding her identity for her protection, and in a moment, you'll understand why. Her story begins 6 years ago, when she stumbled upon a pair of SD cards.
Assuming that they were mine, I put them in, and lo and behold, there was this video that I could only describe as something I've seen in a horror movie.
That footage shows what looks like an unconscious, unidentified woman and a man.
Scanning her entire body and then proceeding to do things to her.
Things so graphic, we can't show them on TV.
He continued to violate her.
When you saw this, did you know right away who the person behind the camera was?
Right near the end, the camera fell and you could see his face. And I can only describe that as it being a out-of-body experience.
She didn't know the woman, but she did know the man. In fact, she used to date him. She said when she ended their relationship and moved out, some of their belongings got mixed up. That's how she says she ended up with his camera and the SD cards. As horrified as she was seeing this video, the nightmare was about to get worse. She found another video of another woman, but this time, she knew exactly who it was.
And this one was me. You could see my C-section scar.
You had no idea
No clue.
this had happened to you.
No.
What she did next seems like the logical thing to do. She called the police. She told the Cherokee Sheriff's Office that she had been raped, that she had video evidence, and she knew who attacked her. She thought it was an open and shut case. That was in May of 2015. Today, more than 6 years later, her case is still unsolved. The reason she asked we blur her face is not because she was raped. It's because she says the man who raped her is still out there.
I'm assuming they're doing all the background, they're looking through the SD cards, they're gonna find him, they're gonna question him.
But the sheriff's office never questioned him. And we're not naming the man because he has not been arrested or charged. The detective on the case, Claude Dobbs, first emailed about potentially talking to her accused rapist almost 3 years after she reported it. Then, after 5 months without finding him, the detective seemingly gives up, apologizing, saying there wasn't more he could do. Fast forward 2 more years, the search for the man is back on. And the detective writes he's ready to get a warrant, twice, saying it's warrant time. The sheriff's office even put this post on Facebook, asking for the public's help. Then on March 8th of this year, Detective Dobbs says he doesn't have enough to make a charge. He adds he's gone underground and questions if he is even in the state anymore. But the man in the video didn't leave the state. In fact, he's still living in Cherokee County. How do we know? He told us.
Are you in Ackworth still?
Yes, he says, and he knew about this Facebook post. What he didn't know was he was accused of rape, telling us, "No, my God, what?" And "I did not rape anybody." He admits he made these recordings, but he says the women were in on it, that it was a fantasy.
So you're saying she wasn't unconscious?
His response, "I mean, she might have been, not unconscious, but she was awakening, exactly when the whole thing was done." At one point, he tells us they wake up on camera, then backtracks and says they didn't wake up until after he stopped recording. We spoke to him on the phone for more than 15 minutes, asking him questions the Cherokee Sheriff's Office had 6 years to ask. Early on in our investigation, the Sheriff's Office said it put a tremendous amount of effort into this case. A spokesperson declined to comment on camera, but told us in an email, investigators have been unable to obtain any physical evidence or corroborating witness testimony that would provide probable cause for arrest. But the case is still open.
I support the survivor.
Jennifer Bivens, the president and the CEO of the Georgia Network to End Sexual Assault, says she doesn't know what investigators are waiting for.
When you are incapacitated, that is a crime. When you can't consent, that is a crime.
She explains that if someone has no memory of sex and did not consent, that's rape under Georgia law. Bivens could barely hide her frustrations as we showed her emails we obtained from open records about this case.
They've got the freaking video. Like, what else more do you need?
For him to not have been questioned, he's able to be identified, to me, that's troubling.
Criminology professor Thaddeus Johnson says he thinks authorities have probable cause, and not bringing the man in for questioning could put others at risk.
He's done this to one person. And again, allegedly done this to one person. He could allegedly do this to someone else. He moved it like a predator moves. He wasn't moving like a person's first time.
And while the sheriff's office maintains via email, it investigates every case to the fullest extent, and detectives say the man went underground, we found they had opportunity to question him just one day before he called us. A deputy pulled him over for a traffic violation here at this intersection in Cherokee County. The sheriff's office confirms the stop happened, but says because there was no warrant, no red flag popped up during the stop, and the man was free to go.
What are we doing? What is happening? Why? This is the situation at hand. There is something systemically going on. And it's up to us to advocate for ourselves because no one else is going to.
Advocating for herself is exactly what she's doing now. Aside from sharing her story with us, she hired an attorney and is putting pressure on investigators and the district attorney to act.
I've gone through 6 years of just waiting. My life's been on hold. I'm ready to move on.
Do you feel like you can still get justice?
I don't know what justice looks like anymore.
We asked the Cherokee Sheriff's Office what other witnesses it's looking for in this case and why it's not considering the video evidence. A spokesperson said no comment. We have more of this story online, including our recorded phone conversation with the man accused of rape.
Up next on The Reveal. It's a desperate situation, and it's happening to a startling number of parents.
Your mental health will decline. It's just a lot.
Inside one mother's struggle to get her son help and what it means for thousands of other kids. For more on these investigations or to submit a tip to the Reveal team, text REVEAL to 404-873-9114 or email us at thereveal@11alive.com.
Child welfare is supposed to be the state agency that helps abused and neglected children. But the Reveal found more than 1,000 children abandoned to the state last year simply because their parents didn't know what else to do. Parents trying to keep children like Bradley.
I miss him so much, but he requires more than what I can offer him as just a mom.
You kind of need a motion sickness pill to carry a Zoom conversation with April Bonacorsi. She literally has her hands full with Ava.
I'm sorry, the baby spit up all over me.
You're fine. And her son Aiden. There's also her 14-year-old son, Bradley. You don't see him, but he's there.
Always in my heart. Talk about him every day. Everything I do, I think about Bradley. And the guilt.
She says with laughter.
I can't cry 24/7.
Guilt because Bradley is living at a residential treatment facility.
I want my shoes off. You know how to take your shoes off, baby?
While her son Aiden can communicate what he wants and pout when he doesn't get it,
Be a big boy.
Bradley is nonverbal and has autism. Since he can't use words to communicate his feelings, he often speaks through aggression.
Stop.
If you find this video tough to watch, imagine living it.
He would wrap his whole body around your legs and bite you, and it would be to where, like, for a year I had like a piece of flesh that was just misshapen on my leg. He's very, very strong.
It's children like Bradley that are at risk of being abandoned to the state's child welfare system. About 40% who come into care this way are teens. Of those with a listed diagnosis, 58% have severe behavioral or mental health challenges. 40% have a developmental disability, and many come into care with all of these things. But what do you think we need to do differently to keep these children from being abandoned?
The systems aren't talking to each other.
It's more putting out her fires.
I asked the same question of more than 24 parents and child welfare organizations.
There's no care coordination system.
So it's kind of like everything needs to fit in this box.
There was always a barrier. It was always some kind of barrier.
They all mentioned the same problems. There are potentially 4 different state agencies involved in providing care, and there is little to no case management looking at the big picture. And that primary diagnosis, like bipolar or autism, tends to box children in to the type of care they can access.
The analogy I would say is if you need vegetables, getting more hamburger isn't really going to help. And sometimes parents honestly deal with what they can get rather than what they need.
Devin Orlin and Joe Sarah work for the Georgia Advocacy Office, a nonprofit that helps parents fight for what their child needs. The state's guide to helping parents openly admits getting help can be a long and difficult process.
Once a child qualifies for Medicaid, that comes with certain commitments. You're legally entitled to a case manager. You're legally entitled to supports within the home. And you're legally entitled to not have to fight, scrap, and go broke doing it.
Yet April says every service is a fight.
Calm down.
When she tried to get Bradley behavioral therapy, she ended up on a waiting list. And when his behavior got too bad to ignore, his insurance sent him to a treatment facility in South Carolina, 4 hours away from home.
That I thought, okay, it's going to be a couple months, and then he'll come back and we'll have a plan. 2 years later.
Do you have any of that?
No, I don't.
Now, after 2 years, Bradley's insurance says this level of care is no longer a medical necessity.
I know.
The problem? They still can't find a local therapist that will work with Bradley's aggression.
At discharge, services in the community and in the home must be identified, approved, and ready to go.
But Bradley's insurance didn't want to wait. April felt she was being forced to pit the safety of her children against each other. And when she pushed back, she says her insurance offered a solution.
Well, you can always give up partial custody to DFACS, and then he'll get the resources that he needs.
You heard right. An insurance company, knowing how all these claims get shuffled, suggesting to a mom that she abandon her child in order to get him care. And April says that is the problem, not Bradley's aggression. Services should be the same, if not better, while in her custody, and she should be able to find them around where she lives.
You better leave your brother alone. God dang it, Bradley, get off of me.
But in that moment of exhaustion, parents like April do wonder, would their child be better off?
You know, your mental health will decline. It's just a lot.
For April, the answer is no. She's been able to fight for a little more time to make arrangements, but says whether hugging her leg in the kitchen,
He's got the cutest little face, so I was like, well, boop.
or biting it in a fit of rage, she wants Bradley in the family photos, because without him, the house just feels empty.
Honestly, it's not really the house, it's me. I feel empty without my child. Sorry, I'm gonna cry. I feel empty without him. It's just how I feel on the inside, that I'm missing a huge piece.
This story was told as part of the 2020 Data Fellowship with the USC Annenberg Center for Health Journalism.
Up next on The Reveal, on the front lines,
George Floyd broke something in everyone.
how an Atlanta attorney is fighting for civil rights and getting results.
Welcome back. A year since the death of George Floyd pulled conversations about equality and justice front and center, we put the spotlight on Chris Stewart. He's a civil rights attorney taking on some of the country's biggest cases. Stewart spoke with 11 Alive's Natisha Lance about what it takes to carry such load of cases.
After each civil rights case, attorney Chris Stewart says it will be his last.
I'll tell my law partners, we're done with civil rights. No more cases. We're not doing another single one. And then I'll call them at 2 in the morning like, man, all right, this is going to be the last one.
Behind all the press conferences and before the verdicts are read, it's nonstop work that is physically and emotionally draining.
You're not just their lawyer, you're a best friend, a pastor, a therapist, a accountant. I mean, you are everything, and it's 24/7.
Stewart has come to be known as one of the most prominent civil rights attorneys in the country, making him a go-to for families of men and women allegedly mistreated or killed by police. But that's just a small part of the cases his law firm typically handles. He says he turns down 95% of the civil rights cases he's called about.
I don't want to do them. So if you see me on one, it's a problem. Like, it's bad.
It's not a role he sought during his 16 years of practicing law as a personal injury trial attorney. But as a Howard University Law School graduate, he considers taking civil rights cases his responsibility.
That is ingrained in your DNA at the law school. Your job isn't just to make money. You know, anybody can make money. You have an obligation to fight for civil rights.
In 2014, it was Stewart's heart that put him on his first big civil rights case. And years later, George Floyd.
George Floyd broke something in everyone.
In the midst of a pandemic, the country was forced to stop, listen, and watch when a Minneapolis police officer kneeled on George Floyd's neck, ending his life.
You were drowned in the tragedy 24/7 on social media, on TV, because you couldn't even go outside.
But many could not sit in silence. Protests echoed around the country, calling for more than justice for George Floyd. While protesters took to the streets, Stewart worked 20-hour days, waging his own protest that helped deliver that justice.
Find the defendant guilty.
It was just a mixture of joy and just relief, because I knew if it was a not guilty verdict, that would have been the end of civil rights.
With each case he takes, though sometimes reluctantly, he has the ear of the country, and in some cases the world. It doesn't make the 20-hour days easier, but it gives them purpose for the possibility of change to come.
The impact that you could have on policing society, you can actually try and help resolve a lot of that if people will listen to you.
For more on these investigations or to submit a tip to the Reveal team, text REVEAL to 404-873-9114 or email us at thereveal@11alive.com.
Our investigations have impact.
Is there a reason why you won't talk with me?
You've recently been indicted.
This is on the record. Change laws.
Don't you think someone needs to be held accountable for this?
Expose crimes. Crimes that lead to murder indictments.
We would not be able to prosecute this case without that video.
See the 11 Alive investigators change the face of local news.
Thank you for watching The Reveal. You can check out all of our episodes on our YouTube channel. Until next time, we'll see you again
on The Reveal.